Hey there, bibliophiles and those raising bibliophiles. Thank you for joining me for an honest book review from a fellow mom seeking great books for children to read. Today's book review is Book 2 in the Path of the Ranger series, The King's Secret. So this is Book 2 by Spanish author Pedro Urvi. So Book 2 picks up with the winter break in which Book 1 ends. Lascaux returns to his home village to reclaim his father's land, title, and inheritance. However, it isn't long before he ends up back in camp to begin his second year of ranger training. Darthor's evil forces are rising, and King Uther must call on everyone in the kingdom to help him defend it. Book 2 is full of mystery and revelations that are setting up the next book. To simplify my review a little bit, I'm definitely going to encourage you to go and check out my written review. I'll have it linked below. You can also go to my website, also linked below, and check out the review from that standpoint. So I'm going to simplify a little bit because there's a lot that's in the series in the book too, and just sort of separate things out into different topics. So the first thing is that there is profanity. So if you read my or listened to my review for book 1, you know that there is some profanity in there. A lot of that continues on in book 2. Actually, not nearly, I think, as much as in book 1. Mainly the use is of hell and damn in the book. There is a few references to another word. Again, check out and you can see what pages and what specifically you'll find in that regard. Again, we are dealing with a fantasy novel, so there is the element of magic and supernatural elements. In this particular book, the references to magic is definitely more blatant. And so the gift and the talent isn't seen so much as just that, but it's definitely seen more as magic with spells and capabilities. So that wasn't so much present in book 1, but it definitely is present and very clear in book 2. One of the main revelations within this book, and so spoiler, if you have an interest in reading this book, I'm about to spoil something in it. King Uther is really a shapeshifter. And so there are magical stones also within the story that help you to reveal hidden information that are in books. So the books don't look like they're anything, which makes them weird. But then these magical stones help reveal what really is in the books. Camus, who is Lascaux's reptile pet, shows some magical abilities. He's able to detect it, and he is able to sort of protect Lascaux from some of its effects. Again, you also have lots of references to frozen gods and gods of ice. So again, check out my written review. You'll see a lot more details to specific instances and things in the book. They do learn to make potions and stuff like that. So the idea of spells and potions is much more prevalent in book 2 than it was in book 1, and references to sorcerers and that sorts of things. Book 2 also has a lot more romantic relationships. So there's a few references throughout the story to these like complex and budding relationships between the girls and the boys. Not like totally necessary, but it is indicative of adolescent relationships. So I can sort of understand like why it was included. And so you'll see Lascaux in the story. He confronts a young girl he used to have a crush on. He realizes he doesn't have one on her anymore. His relationship with Astrid kind of grows a little bit, but she becomes jealous from another girl who shows up and sort of takes an interest in Lascaux and talking to him. So that's like a whole dynamic in the story. You also have stuff with Ingrid and a third year and Viggo. So again, if you want specific details, please check out my review. There's a lot more violence in this particular book compared to the other ones. In the first one, there's definitely the scenes of bullying and attacking that Lascaux faces, and so those are quite violent. But we see it on a whole nother level in book 2. So again, these guys are training to be rangers, and there's a war going on. So of course, there's going to be violence, and so that really shouldn't be a surprise. They're not gruesome per se, but they are in there, and that could be a little bit much for some readers. There is a combat that's close to ranger training camp area, and so There's a lot of details and issues, not gruesome or graphic details, but just there's a lot of wounded people who are dying and bleeding, and they're trying to save part of Uther's army. And the Rangers at one point are set on a mission where they need to clear a path to bring some of the soldiers back. So the pass is through the mountains is impassable, and so they're trying to get them out. There are mentions in a battle that occurs when they're in the northern part where some of the soldiers are skewered by a large wild of ice like person. People are injured and killed. Some of the captives are sort of given over to like trolls and ogres to like and bears to fight them and kill them to the death, and that's seen as sport, kind of like the Roman, like the gladiator idea. And so that's in the story. Additionally, the young rangers who are children of dukes who have not pledged themselves to King Uther, they are scheduled to be hanged by royal decree unless the duke chooses to then pledge allegiance and help fight with King Uther. This actually puts Eagle's life in jeopardy. There's a lot of tension regarding this in the story, horrific things, obviously, to consider as hanging children. Depending on the age of your reader, this may be a little bit dark. So this book is geared more towards older teens. So with that in mind, I don't think it would necessarily be a concern. You do have some feminist undertones in this particular book regarding Ingrid and her desire to like prove herself as a woman. And she talks a little bit about her aunt's history and how that really influenced her and her ideas and her beliefs. So again, if you want more specific details about that, please go and check out my written review, which will be linked. And you'll get a lot of that. So big spoiler in this book. So if you plan to read this and you don't want to know anymore and you don't want to be spoiled anything else, then please stop listening and end the video now. But if that's not you and you're okay and you want to hear the rest of it because you're thinking about your child reading this book, and I mean, I found them very engaging myself. But so Laskell actually meets Darther face to face, and he discovers that Darther is really his mother. So the remainder of the story is him trying to really figure out what is going on and what's true. When he uncovers that Uther is a shapeshifter, he realizes that Darther really is his mother. This is pretty much where the story leaves the reader. I really enjoyed this story, and I do look forward to reading some of the others. I realize that this may not be a series for most people, given the nature of the fantasy and the magic that's employed as definitely a focal point. On the flip side, there are great themes about friendship, about sacrifice, about truth, about honesty. Laskell even makes it clear like he's not going to use his gift during his training because he feels like that would be cheating. And you have this team that's extremely dedicated to each other and supporting one another through each of the trials and things that take place. So it may be a while before I get to book number 3, but as soon as I do, I will write up a review and I will record what I have uncovered in that book for you if you are interested in that. But as far as book 1 and 2 go, definitely enjoyable, definitely meant as a fantasy read for older teens, and definitely an intriguing story. But again, I know that some of the magic and the fantasy could be off-putting for some people. So definitely just check out the review, trying to give you as much information as possible so that you can make wise decisions for you and your family.